Exodus chapters 13 through 15. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Sanctify to me every firstborn, first produced, opening every womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast. It is mine. And Moses said to the people, Remember this day in which ye came forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For the strong hand the Lord brought you thence, and leaven shall not be eaten. For on this day ye go forth in the month of new corn. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Kettites, and the Amorites, and the Evites, and the Jebusites, and the Girgashites, and Perizzites, which he sware to thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt perform this service in this month. 6 days ye shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day is a feast to the Lord. 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread. Nothing leavened shall be seen with thee, neither shalt thou have leaven in all thy borders. And thou shalt tell thy son in that day, saying, Therefore the Lord dealt thus with me, as I was going out of Egypt. And it shall be to thee a sign upon thy hand, and a memorial between thine eyes, that the law of the Lord may be in thy mouth. For the strong hand the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. And preserve ye this law according to the times of the seasons, from year to year. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware to thy fathers, and shall give it thee, that thou shalt set apart every offspring opening the womb, the males to the Lord. Every one that opens the womb out of the herds or among thy cattle, as many as thou shalt have, thou shalt sanctify the males to the Lord. Every offspring opening the womb of the ass thou shalt change for a sheep, and if thou wilt not change it, thou shalt redeem it. Every firstborn of man of thy son shalt thou redeem. And if thy son should ask thee hereafter, saying, What is this? Then thou shalt say to him, With a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And when Pharaoh hardened his heart so as not to send us away, he slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore do I sacrifice every offspring that opens the womb, the males to the Lord, and every firstborn of my sons I will redeem. And it shall be for a sign upon thy hand, and immovable before thine eyes, for the strong hand the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. And when Pharaoh sent forth the people, God led them not by way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. For God said, Lest at any time the people repent when they see the war, and return to Egypt. And God led the people round by the way to the wilderness to the Red Sea, and in the 5th generation the children of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had solemnly adjured the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones hence with you. And the children of Israel departed from Succoth, and encamped at Otham by the wilderness. And God led them in the day by a pillar of cloud to show them the way, and the night by a pillar of fire. And the pillar of cloud failed not by day, nor the pillar of fire by night before all the people. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and let them turn and encamp before the village, between Magdal and the sea, opposite Baal-Zephon. Before them shalt thou encamp by the sea. And Pharaoh will say to his people, As for these children of Israel, they are wandering in the land, and the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue after them. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his host, and in all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh was turned, and that of his servants against the people. And they said, What is this that we have done, to let the children of Israel go, so that they should not serve us? So Pharaoh yoked his chariots, and led off all his people with himself, having also taken 600 chosen chariots, and all the cavalry of the Egyptians, and rulers over all. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and of his servants, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went forth with a high hand. And the Egyptians pursued after them, and found them encamped by the sea. And all the cavalry and the chariots of Pharaoh, and the horsemen, and his hosts, were before the village, over against Baal-Zephon. And Pharaoh approached, and the children of Israel, having looked up, beheld, and the Egyptians encamped behind them. And they were very greatly terrified. And the children of Israel cried to the Lord, and said to Moses, Because there were no graves in the land of Egypt, hast thou brought us forth to slay us in the wilderness? What is this that thou hast done to us, having brought us out of Egypt? Is not this the word which we spoke to thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, Be of good courage, stand, and see the salvation which is from the Lord, which he will work for us this day. For as ye have seen the Egyptians today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said to Moses, Why criest thou to me? Speak to the children of Israel, and let them proceed. And do thou lift up thy rod, and stretch forth thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And let the children of Israel enter into the midst of the sea on dry land. And lo, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh and of all the Egyptians, and they shall go in after them. And I will be glorified upon Pharaoh, and all his hosts, and on his chariots, and on his horses. And all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I am glorified upon Pharaoh, and upon his chariots and his horses. And the angel of God went before the camp to the children of Israel, removed, and went behind. And the pillar of cloud also removed, and from before them, and stood behind them. And it went between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and stood. And there was darkness and blackness, and the night passed, and they came not near to one another during the whole night. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the Lord carried back the sea with a strong south wind all the night, and made the sea dry, and the water was divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry land, and the water of it was a wall on the right hand, and a wall on the left. And the Egyptians pursued them, and went in after them, and every horse of Pharaoh, and his chariots, and his horsemen, into the midst of the sea. And it came to pass in the morning that the Lord looked forth on the camp of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and troubled the camp of the Egyptians, and bound the axle trees of their chariots, which caused them to go with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fight for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said to Moses, Stretch forth thine hand over the sea, let the water be turned back to its place, and let it cover the Egyptians coming both upon the chariots and the riders. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the water returned to its place toward day. And the Egyptians fled from the water as the Lord shook off the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the water returned and covered the chariots and the riders, and all the forces of Pharaoh, who entered after them into the sea. And there was not left of them even one. But the children of Israel went along dry land in the midst of the sea, and the water was to them a wall on the right hand and the wall on the left. So the Lord delivered Israel in that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead by the shore of the sea. And Israel saw the mighty hand, the things which the Lord did to the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed God, and Moses his servant. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song to God, and spoke, saying, Let us sing to the Lord, for he is very greatly glorified. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. He was to me a helper and protector for my salvation. This is my God, and I will glorify him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord, bringing wars to naught. The Lord is his name. He has cast the chariots of Pharaoh and his host into the sea. The chosen mounted captains. They were swallowed up in the Red Sea. He covered them with the sea. They sank into the depth like a stone. Thy right hand, O God, has been glorified in strength. Thy right hand, O God, has broken the enemies. And in the abundance of thy glory thou hast broken adversaries to pieces. Thou sentest forth thy wrath. It devoured them as stubble. By the breath of thy anger, the water parted asunder. The waters were congealed as a wall. The waves were congealed in the midst of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue. I will overtake. I will divide the spoils. I will satisfy my soul. I will destroy with my sword. My hand shall have dominion. Thou sentest forth thy wind. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty water. Who is like to thee among the gods, O Lord? Who is like to thee, glorified in holiness, marvelous in glories, doing wonders? Thou stretchest forth thy right hand, and the earth swallowed them up. Thou hast guided in thy righteousness this thy people, whom thou hast redeemed. By thy strength thou hast called them into thy holy resting place. The nations heard and were angry. Pangs have seized on dwellers among the Philistines. Then the princes of Edom and the chiefs of the Moabites hastened. Trembling took hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted away. Let trembling and fear fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm, let them become as stone, till thy people pass over, O Lord, till this thy people pass over, whom thou hast purchased. Bring them in and plant them in the mountain of their inheritance, in thy prepared habitation, which thou, O Lord, hast prepared. The sanctuary, O Lord, which thine hands have made ready. The Lord reigns for ever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with the chariots and horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought upon them the water of the sea. But the children of Israel walked through the dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, having taken a timbrel in her hand. Then there went forth all the women after her with timbrels and dances. And Miriam led them, saying, Let us sing to the Lord, for he has been greatly glorified. The horse and rider he has cast into the sea. So Moses brought out the children of Israel from the Red Sea, and brought them into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness, and found no water to drink. And they came to Marah, and could not drink of Marah, for it was bitter. Therefore he named the name of that place Bitterness. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And Moses cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, and he cast it into the water, and the water was sweetened. There he established to him ordinances and judgments, and there he proved him, and said, If thou wilt indeed hear the voice of the Lord thy God, and do things pleasing before him, and wilt hearken to his commands, and keep all his ordinances, no disease which I have brought upon the Egyptians will I bring upon thee, for I am the Lord thy God that heals thee. And they came to Elim, and there were 12 fountains of water, and 70 stems of palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. Psalm 24, 25 in Hebrew, verses 12 through 22. Who is the man that fears the Lord? He shall instruct him in the way which he has chosen. His soul shall dwell in prosperity, and his seed shall inherit the earth. The Lord is the strength of them that fear him, and his covenant is to manifest truth to them. Mine eyes are continually to the Lord, where he shall draw my feet out of the snare. Look upon me and have mercy upon me. For I am an only child, and poor. The afflictions of my heart have been multiplied. Deliver me from my distress. Look upon my affliction and trouble, and forgive me all my sins. Look upon mine enemies, for they have been multiplied, and they have hated me with unjust hatred. Keep my soul, and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed, for I have hoped in thee. The harmless and upright join themselves to me, for I have waited for thee, O Lord. Deliver Israel, O God, out of all his afflictions. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 25 through 27. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids assent to just things. Make straight paths for thy feet, and order thy ways aright. Turn not aside to the right hand, nor to the left, but turn away thy foot from an evil way. For God knows the ways on the right hand, but those on the left are crooked. And he will make thy way straight, and will guide thy steps in peace. The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees which rode Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus ye have made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And he called the multitude, and said unto them, Hear and understand. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Then came his disciples, and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, Are ye also yet without understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man.